Hello, everyone. We are grateful to have the chance to interview and talk with Matt Walsh. I normally do introductions with all of our people, but if you don't know who Matt Walsh is, you've been living under a rock, okay? But just in case you haven't living under a rock, he is a host at the Daily Wire, and he is the creator and producer of one of the most iconic films in the last 5 years, What is a Woman? Matt, thanks for your time, and it's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
We got a big gala coming up. Courage Under Fire, May 25th in Nashville, Tennessee. What is this all about? Begs the question, number one, who you taking fire from? And why are you speaking there? Why are you helping to promote this event?
Well, I think we're taking fire from. It's a constant. This is one of the problems is you cannot identify one source or one enemy, as it were. I think we are. It's a pervasive assault, and this is something that, especially if you're a parent and you have young children that you're trying to raise in this culture. I know that you are just like I am, very always aware of it, always aware of the fact that there are so many forces in the culture constantly trying to corrupt your children and also trying to sever that bond that you have with your children because they see it as a threat to them and to their agenda. And so that's a lot of what the gala is about. It's what Regina Chaley is about, the Homeschool Academy, and it's one of the big reasons why we're a big homeschool family in our family, because the public school system is certainly not the only culprit here, but that is one of the primary vehicles that the culture uses to, as I said, kind of try to come between a parent and their children.
There's the direct intention to come between you and your children, to like the public schools, transgender ideology, which also creeps in, by the way, some Catholic schools. That's direct, that's intentional. But then there's almost the indirect, and I think this is where Regina Chaley really shines, is you guys offer a hybrid program. So instead of sending your kids off 5 days a week, I was talking to, a couple of my friends, my brothers and their kids, they got to pay $10,000, $12,000 a year to get their kids out of the house for 5 days out of the week, right? Which they don't want to do. They want to be with their kids more. Regina Chaley basically offers a lower tuition and the ability to spend more time at home with mom and dad. Correct? Is that how it works?
Yeah, that's the idea, and it also shows that there are many different ways to approach homeschooling. I think when I talk to parents who maybe are considering homeschooling, have tried it and feel a little bit overwhelmed by it because it feels like a lot, especially if you're just getting into it. But the great news is that there are many different ways to do it. And if you want to just do it all on your own and you're at your home teaching your own kids by yourself, plenty of people have done that. You can do it successfully. But there are all kinds of programs and organizations and support, different groups of support where you can turn to. And Regina Chaley is just one of those ways.
How's been the support from local diocese church leaders with regards to just the program in general, and have they been supportive?
They've been supportive. I think that in Nashville we feel pretty supportive. I think that there's always more that the church in general could do to support homeschooling in general and to promote it. I think there's always more that can be done in that regard. But yeah, we have been supported.
People talk very much right now about the future of Catholic education. It has undergone just a absolutely historic change, right? And we see that, there's a lot of reasons to it. One of the number one factors, people put forth is the reduction of nuns. Nuns helped really keep tuition costs low early on, right? They avowed poverty, and that's gone away in our Catholic schools, together with the cultural revolution, which has hit the church, causing a lot of these weak, watered down Catholic versions. Matt, how do you see just in general the future of Catholic and private education in this country?
I think, I'm not very high on private Catholic education. The sort of private Catholic education where, like you're talking about, you're sending your kid 5 days a week for whatever, 6 or 7 hours a day. There are plenty of great Catholic schools out there, don't get me wrong, but from our own experience anyway, of looking into those options over the years, which we've done at various different points, and we've lived in various different states, moving around, and We've encountered some good ones here and there, but what we find far too often is that in many cases, the Catholic schools, the education might be very solid, but the culture itself doesn't appear to be that different from what you get in public schools. And part of that is, that there's a real challenge when you have any kind of school and you have hundreds of kids in this environment. It's certainly, I can only imagine, a major challenge to establish a real Catholic environment, because what ends up happening in public schools, because there's so many kids, you end up with this peer culture where essentially the kids sort of determine what the culture is, and there's no real direction, no guidance coming from the people in charge. And so it can be hard to counteract that. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of Catholic schools, they don't do enough to counteract it.
Going back to the who are you taking fire from? Okay, so you have the public school model. Now, early on in this country, there was almost no public schools, right? If any, right? And it grew over time. Catholics for Catholics, we are all about getting behind Catholics or like-minded individuals in the public square. You guys are in the public square. You're trying to win back that education sector, and that's why we're backing you and sponsoring this gala. Do you feel yourself coming into head? I mean, it's obvious. We see it in state legislatures across the country right now with the battle for school choice. We're from Arizona, and we've made a lot of progress there. Do you see that? What do you see the role of public schools in future, as the Department of Education has been? They've been talked about reducing that drastically in the new Trump term.
I think that even though I just said I'm not super high on private Catholic education at the moment, with some important exceptions, generally speaking, with the situation with education in our country, I feel pretty optimistic. I feel a kind of reserved optimism about the future, because I do think that you have more and more people who are awakening to the fact that even if you send your kids to public school, which there are plenty of people plenty of families where they feel like they really have no choice, and for various different reasons, homeschool just doesn't work for them. They don't have the money for private school. Like, that's a real concern. That's a reality for plenty of people. They have to send their kids to public school. I think you should look at that as like a last resort. If you have no other choice, then you do it. But even many families that are doing that are realizing that, well, you can't just send your kids off for 6-7 hours a day, 5 days a week, 9 months a year for 12 or 13 years of their formative childhood years. You can't just send them there and assume that everything's being taken care of, and hope that it all kind of happens on its own. You have to be very involved, holding the school system accountable, going to the school board meetings, all of that stuff. And I think that we've seen a real movement in that direction, as well as a movement towards homeschooling. Homeschooling is much more popular now than it used to be. And so that does give me some hope, I'll say.
Absolutely does. And I think it's like you narrated earlier, that it could be daunting to want to homeschool. Just to all of a sudden have 4 or 5 kids at home, and you got to schedule everything. You're a busy mom trying to organize it all. It's a lot. Regina Chaley offers a hybrid, really 3 days a week, kind of gives you a break, helps you stay on track. They're very much assisting the parents and with the different tests and metrics that their students or kids have to make. And I think that's awesome. I think that's really good. And just even for my own self, I have 2 master's degrees, but I learned also as well that it's studying on your own is I mean, personal opinion, I think we've taken classes too far a little bit. I think there's too much. I think you can learn a lot on your own at home. In fact, with the greatest president of our country, one of the greatest, Abraham Lincoln, he studied basically by the fireplace every night, read a book, self-taught himself, right? So I think that model needs to be advocated more. And what better than under the auspices of the primary educators, as canon law says so clearly in 793. So I think Regina Chaley's nailing that. One last question as we wrap up this interview, Matt, is, yes, I'm filming this in a car. People are going to hit me up later. How could you film the great Matt Walsh in a car? Where's your studio, man? Well, the reason is we wanted to do this. I'm in the parking lot of the Shrine of Our Lady of Good Help in Champion, Wisconsin. That is the only, Matt and I are Catholics. That is the only approved apparition in the United States by the church. What was Mary's simple message? Basically, specifically this. She said, gather the children in this wild country, teach them what they should know for their salvation, their catechism. It was about educating the kids. Matt, you guys are doing that. Do you see yourself really just taking that? I'm sure you do. I mean, most of your educators are Catholic. Do you see yourself living that Catholic message in the marketplace? Is that how it is?
Yeah, and I'll also say that that's a beautiful reason to be doing the interview in the car. Also, for anyone who's followed my show over the years, I used to do my podcast in my car also. So there's a symmetry here. I think it's very nice. But yeah, that's something that we're trying to live out in our own lives, and of course not perfectly. That's one thing. Another thing with homeschool parents is that you can end up. I think parents in general, but especially when you homeschool, you can be quite hard on yourself because of all the things that you're taking on and all the anxieties and worries that come with it. But realizing that this is what we're called to do and that we're fulfilling our purpose and our vocation, I think gives us a lot of hope.
It does give us hope. Matt, you, Michael Knowles, a lot of you guys give us hope. Catholics, our followers love people at Daily Wire. And I think the reason is because you guys have found a way to live your Catholic faith very clearly, balanced way in the public sphere. And, it's a source of admiration, inspiration. So, Matt, thanks for your time. I look forward to seeing you in person. May 25th. If you can get a ticket, there's still a few tickets left. They've sold a bunch already. They got a number of amazing speakers. Bishop Strickland, for one, America's Bishop, will be there. Father Don Calloway, Abby Johnson, and others. So support this gala, whether by physical presence or just checking out Regina Chali's website, right, and sending a prayer. Matt, thanks for your time. We'll see you in a couple weeks.